Let's bring in Jeff Pierce. He's going to take us through a few interesting stories here. We don't have big earnings just yet this week, but we do have plenty to talk about here, Jeff. A few other analyst notes as well. In addition to GM's Cruise unit, which has some major disruption, Uber's going to tap public markets. Let's start with the cars. Let's go to GM first. So this is kind of a story that probably should have gotten more attention last week, which is what's going on with their Cruise unit, which is the Robo taxi stuff. Tell us about it.
Yeah, we've got more news coming out. As you pointed out, it's been a bit turbulent for the Cruise side of the business. Their CEO of the Cruise side, Kyle Vaught, resigned his post. The company, this of course comes after the company lost certain permissions in California and had to pause operations. New CEO has not yet been named. We did see several adjustments made after his departure. Last week, we saw Cruise suspended its supervised driving operations on public roads while it undergoes an independent safety review. Last month, of course, we saw an incident which involved the Cruise self-driving car, allegedly hitting someone walking on the street. California regulators pulled the company's permits that allowed it to operate in the state, and we know, Cruise has really been kind of one of the companies to really kind of start this states allowing them to operate. In June of 2022, they were the first self-driving car company offered pay rides to passengers in any U.S. major city. We've seen them operate in Austin, Dallas, Houston, Phoenix. We know that this has been a losing operation for GM so far, but GM has said that they see a lot of growth potential in this unit. So this volatility, this up and down we've seen in Cruise is not something that investors are interested in seeing.
It's kind of interesting that there's not more talk about maybe what this means for self-driving in general. I guess everyone's assuming Tesla's got that on lock. I mean, isn't it supposed to be a pretty big catalyst long-term for the ride-hailing apps like Uber we're going to talk about in a second?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at what GM thinks of this business, they think that Cruise is going to generate about $50 billion in annual sales by 2030. So there's certainly a lot of excitement around it. But of course, we've seen a lot of recalled software on vehicles. We've seen reports of collisions. We've seen federal regulators really come down and make sure that they're inspecting these vehicles and what they're capable of. And that's been a lot of headwinds for these different companies. And then you, of course, have to throw in the fact that GM has got these issues going on with the UAW. They've got the vote going on and some concerns about how that vote's going to turn out.
Okay, so it seems like at least with their resignation, it's kind of a way to compartmentalize the incident is maybe an execution, a leadership thing. I mean, just kind of seems like there's still going to be a pretty high bar to pass kind of public inspection for these, even if, ultimately it seems like there's a good case that long term it's going to make driving safer. Any incident right now, there's a lot of short-term myopia as far as lawmakers and public image goes. So that's kind of my 2 cents. Let's talk about that Uber deal. It looks like they're going to issue some convertible notes. Effectively, the stock market treats this like stock. So no surprise then that shares might recalibrate a little bit. But with the way they've been doing so well, I guess I was a little bit surprised by this, but hey, the market, they're actually up now. They've come all the way back around from being down at $52 this morning.
Yeah, there's not a lot of reaction here. I think when you're executing as well as Uber has been, and the fact that they're up 93% over the last 12 months, the reaction's not too much here. They plan to offer about $1.2 billion in convertible senior notes due by 2028. They said they're also going to grant any initial purchases of the notes. They're going to grant an additional $180 million worth of notes available. They said they're going to use the proceeds to fund the cost of entering into certain cap call transactions, but they're also going to use the rest to repay, redeem, and repurchase any outstanding debt, including that $1 billion of 7.5% notes we saw they're going to mature in 2025. So it kind of makes sense. I think investors are likely seeing it from that perspective. You look at the last report, very good earnings, growth of 11% year over year on the revenue side. You look at the mobility section, the biggest section, $5.07 billion. That was up 33% year over year. Delivery up 6%, and freight down 27%. So quite a drag on freight, but still that's a very small part of the business in comparison to the other two units. And the outlook side is good as well. I mean, expecting fourth quarter bookings between 365.5 to 300, or excuse me, 36.5 to 37.5 billion, adjusted EBITDA 1.8, 1.24 billion, above what analysts were expecting. So I think investors are happy with Uber's position. They may not love them issuing these bonds, but ultimately they're not reacting too much today.
Yeah, this is, I think, the latest sign of a lot of confidence in the company and the stock, too, being well supported because, as we saw this morning, shares dipped a little bit, type of thing that could dent them for a moment, but not going to happen. Bounce back. We're up by now almost 1% for the day, so pretty impressive. Uber continues to find love in this market.